Hello, Freedom Preppers. This is Perrin Lovett, and welcome to another live presentation. I suppose this is a podcast and or Facebook video, and it's been a little while since I've done something like this. Welcome to the new series if you're on Spotify or Anchor or one of the other services I know very little about. Today we're going to be talking about something that's been in the news in general, even the mainstream media, and also all over the prepperverse, and that is the Civil War. And we're not talking about American history from the 1860s. This October at Freedom Prepper, we've been running a series on riots, unrest, and Civil War, and so I just want to cover the most extreme of that trilogy. I've noticed a lot of people, preppers and the mainstream, when they talk about Civil War, it seems like the only examples they give and the only predictions they make are about what we've seen so far. Civil War meaning more riots. And I imagine there are going to be more riots. But what I'm talking about when I say war is war. All out, total war. All across the United States. And we're going to just briefly get into this. I'm going to keep this one kind of short because I pre-recorded one of these before and I ran out of room and it was a big mess. But so bear with me. I got some notes here I'm just going to skim through. Let's see. First, I want to thank our, since we're talking about Civil War and the breakup of the United States, I want to thank our sponsors, Goldman Sachs, Raytheon, and the Bipartisan Committee to Destroy America. Good job, folks. You did it. No, but seriously, this is not something that has just started this year, although this year it's really become acute. And it's not something that's going to be over tomorrow. It's not going to be over after the election next year. We're in for a long-term process rather than an event, and ultimately where this is leading would be the geographic and the geopolitical breakup of the United States. And people say, well, that's impossible. We're the exceptional nation. Well, history says something otherwise. Rome was exceptional, England was exceptional, the Soviet Union was exceptional, and they all got too big, lasted too long, and broke up. So some misconceptions about what this is or what it will be. And I have been almost convinced now that we're already in a soft civil war. You just have one large faction basically sitting it out at this point. It's a one-sided affair. And it's very low energy, which is good. None of this stuff is pleasant. Nobody really likes to talk about it. I certainly hope I'm wrong about everything I'm going to tell you and everything that I'm thinking. I just fear that I'm right. Some misconceptions. It's not going to be like the 1860s. It's certainly not going to be North versus South. And it's not going to be, at least on the ground level, two definable sides going at it. I'm going to get into three levels where there are essentially two sides, but it's not going to be, we have we're conditioned to think about what we already know in terms of war. We're always fighting the last one, and it's not going to be that way. Misconception number two, there will be more riots, but they're going to kind of be supplanted by larger actions. Three, it's going to be a process. It's not an event. I like good dystopian fiction, and most of those stories revolve around the day from Last Babylon, or the EMP detonations in the Fortune book that I suddenly can't remember. 1 second after, but this is something that really, it's a progression that started many years ago, and it may continue for many years or many decades, which can be good and bad. And fourth, no one knows exactly what's going to happen. Nobody can make an accurate prediction about who, when, what, or why. We just know that something is happening and it will continue to happen. So the best thing you can do is to learn from the past so you can, I'm going to abandon these notes. Just kind of freestyle this one. That way I'm not looking down and distracting you. And I hope everybody likes the existing podcast, which are the daily news briefings read to you by a robot. So we're down with all the AI of the future, which I hope continues even during and after a civil war. But some things I would want you to read. There's a book called Gekauft Journalisten. It's by Udo Olfkott, who was a German journalist and editor, news editor. It's only available in German right now. For some reason, the English translation was mysteriously unpublished, like someone didn't want it available to the U.S. or English markets. Gekauft Journalisten roughly translates to bought journalism or journalism for hire, and it's Olfkott's personal experience working in the industry and how any country that has a secret police force will see its media controlled by that secret police force. In this country, that's the CIA. In England, it's MI6. With the fall, with the reconciliation of Germany, he went through several versions himself, and he knows what he's talking about, and he gives you examples that not only make sense, but you'll start to recognize patterns from what he reported on 40 years ago versus what you see on the nightly news now. I just learned, because nothing the media tells you, nothing the government tells you is ever the truth. And if it is the truth, it's just a little sliver, and it's only what they want you to know. I just found out something today. I had a suspicion confirmed about one of the major news stories of 2020. And I'll just leave it like this. What exactly was the connection between George Floyd and the Middle East? Somebody knows something, and they were worried about it years ago, and we've heard absolutely nothing about it. But Gekauft Journalisten is available in German on Amazon. There are a few secondhand copies of the English version. Those are outrageously priced. The rest of the books I'm going to recommend are reasonably priced or free. Given what we're seeing now and what we can expect to see in the future, you might want to read about the ancient past. And one book the Vox Day has been pushing lately is Machiavelli's History of Florence and the Affairs of Italy, which is just a short, brilliant encapsulation of the fall of the Roman Empire and what became of the various groups and city-states in Italy during the Middle Ages. And there are a lot of parallels between that and what we can expect. You might also want to read his Discourses on Livy, of course, The Prince. You've probably already read that or know something about it. Also read his Art of War and read Sun Tzu's Art of War. Most of these books you can find low price. There are Kindle versions of most of them for free, and they're also on Gutenberg for free. Another book I would recommend would be Fourth Generation Warfare by William Lind, because what we're starting to see from Antifa and BLM in our streets is fourth generation warfare, guerrilla warfare, asymmetrical, irregular warfare, and that's going to continue. And not knowing exactly what's going to happen, we can expect that a breakup, it won't be north versus south, it will be chunks here and there. You may have states that break away, may have states that break up into separate components. There doesn't have to be a war for that to occur. We have the great example 26 years ago of Czechoslovakia. The Czechs went their way and the Slovaks went theirs, and they did so peacefully. And now they're the best of friends, and there's no border crossing. I don't think we're going to be like that, because if you haven't looked around, Americans like to do things the hard way. So I think we're looking at something that's more akin to the kind of tumultuous breakup of the Soviet Union, or worse, the multi-party civil war that destroyed Yugoslavia. So read what you can about that. And why does it come to that? Well, the Czechs and the Slovaks are both Slavic people. They're all white Europeans. They're all Christians. They have the same history. They almost share identical geography. And yet they're so different that they had to break apart. Since 1965, a deliberate plan has been in place to turn America into the modern United States, and there's nothing united about it. We are not one people. We're not two people. We're not 10 people. We're a huge amalgam of tribes that are, now coming to blows. So to keep a civilization together, you've got to have three things, and we'll just roughly call those three things: shared intelligence, race or ethnicity, and religion. And we don't. And these are taboo topics. You're just not allowed to talk about it unless you're talking about Tibet or Israel or some other place that the elites have chosen to make an example out of. They can have their society, but nobody else can. Everybody else's societies should be broken up. It's like they're rebuilding the Tower of Babel, and it's not going to work, just like the first one did not work. It never works. There's the popular saying that diversity plus proximity equals war. And it's true. A little bit is great, but too much, too fast, which is what we've seen in the past 50 years, leads you to the point where your cities are burning down every night. So three levels, three things to look for. At the top, most esoteric level, this is going to be, you can call it Christians versus Satanist or good versus evil, because it's an eternal struggle that we're just part of. We're not going to permanently solve it. All we can do is kind of live through our part, if that's possible. And though that kind of gets down to the next level, which would be nationalist versus globalist. And the globalists are the ones that are attempting to thwart God's will and cram everybody back together again. And they know that it doesn't work out. They're well aware of that, and they're doing it anyway for their benefit and our loss. And then the bottom level is what happens, strategically in the field. And that's where you're going to see more riots. But unfortunately, as the thing progresses and heats up, I think you're going to see major combat operations. So it pays to pay attention to how those work and how they don't work. This is 4GW, which the United States, does not do well at all. See Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. The other side seems to understand it very well. I've read some things about Antifa. They are operating, like an elite terrorist organization. It's very well organized, and that other great side, the traditional Americans who are sitting this out so far, don't seem to understand that. So if you know your enemy but you don't know yourself, or if you don't know either, you're in trouble. See Sun Tzu. So what can you do at the macro level? Nothing. There is no stop. There's nothing any of us can do to stop what's in motion now, even if we don't understand it. The best you can do in the large sense is to have faith. Find your side. You may not be a Christian, but you might want to ally with the Christians because you are a good person and you're not evil. Well, you need to stand with the people that are generally standing against evil. There's one of the misconceptions is, back to the old Civil War, this is going to be a race war. That's a popular theme, and there's a little truth in it, but it's too simplistic. I'm in the South, and we tend to think perpetually in terms of black and white. Well, that's fine if it's just us, but it's not just us anymore. and we ourselves are different. There are dozens or hundreds of groups or ideologies in and around black people, white people, and everybody else, and they're all coming to a head. So you've got to figure out where you fit in all of that ideologically, and also in terms of real estate. This is going to affect whatever happens, just like what's happening today is worse, much worse in the big cities. It's bad in medium-sized cities, but people out in the country are largely unaffected, and that's a historical pattern. In a war, you don't bomb the forest. You concentrate on where the people are, where the big resources are. So pay close attention to your area and see if you fit in, and see if you think it's going to be a safe place later this year or next year or 10 years down the road. So it's a lot to think about. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We're pushing like 16 minutes. The good news is, one, that this, it's not necessarily ordained, but it kind of has to happen. Hopefully it will happen in as peaceful a fashion as possible. History and observable reality tend to dictate that might not be the case, but it's going to happen, and most of us are going to make it through it. And when it's over, many better things are going to come out of it. So we can always look to the future and hope for the best, and do what little we can to ensure that we and our children and our grandchildren can enjoy something much better after all the unpleasantness is over. And that's another great takeaway from history. Eventually, it's all fine in the end, for someone. So I'm going to wrap it up. 17 minutes. Perrin Lovett for Freedom Prepper. I've got like 20 pages of notes, talking points that I may turn into a series. Keep your head on a swivel. Practice situational awareness. Look at trends, such as the ones we report on 5 days a week at Freedom Prepper, and stay in good spirits. So a new saying is, it's not as bad as you think, even if it may become worse than you can imagine. But even then, it's going to be okay. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.